Something that's often talked about is the percentage of funding, of VC funding, that goes to female founders. We can't really have this conversation without perhaps touching on that. It used to be about 3%, pretty appalling, but last year it went down to 2%.
Oh my.
Even more appalling.
Hi, I'm Sonia Arch, Deputy News Editor at FT Advisor, and thank you for joining me for this 51 for 51 video series where we interview women from across financial services. Joining me today is Louise Hill, CEO of GoHenry.
Thank you, Sonia. I'm really happy to be here.
So GoHenry is obviously a advocate for financial services, really pushing the boat out there. Why do you think it's important to encourage financial education, and what sort of drove you to start?
At the beginning of 2011, my two kids had been given iPods, the little tiny square ones, by my brother for their Christmas present. I had foolishly given them the login to my iTunes account with my credit card attached. All the parents in the UK are now rolling their eyes at that. And they started spending money like crazy. No surprise there. And I was trying to figure out as a parent, how do I teach them that that is spending money?
Yeah.
And the more parents I spoke to, the more stories came out of the woodwork about kids who were buying things on eBay or buying their way through levels on gaming stations and things like that. And the more I looked, the more I realised there was nothing out there helping parents let their children do that within reasonable limits, but setting some kind of safety barriers and limits around it. And so the idea for GoHenry was born, getting children used to using money in the ways that we were using money. We'd left them behind. We were giving them cash as pocket money.
Yeah.
We were using cards. Contactless had just arrived in the UK. We were shopping online. Guess what? Kids were transacting online as well, but there was nothing there to help parents teach them about doing that in a positive way so that they stayed safe.
Colleagues of mine or friends of mine that I can see who have kids who are like, oh, my child just says, like, can I tap? Like, and although, obviously GoHenry's shifting that in terms of them having their own access, there's still this kind of element of card versus cash and growing up with pocket money versus a piece of plastic that you don't really know what it does. What do you think schools should be doing or could be doing in order to push this forward and kind of help people and children learn quicker?
It isn't just about teaching a child to read and write. It's all about how to look after themselves, how to be a good citizen, how to do so many things. But school is the one place that probably 98% of all children go to. And so for me, it is the perfect environment to start teaching kids about money and giving them the basics of financial education. We've been lobbying government for probably the last 3 years now to try and make financial education mandatory in every school in the UK, starting with primary schools. It is currently on the curriculum for secondary schools in England. It's not a subject that is scored or rated by Ofsted, which means naturally it has less prominence than the the subjects that are rated by Ofsted. But some schools do it brilliantly.
Yeah.
Some schools don't do it at all. Some schools, it's very patchy. And that's just not fair. That is leaving kids ill-equipped to cope with life as they move into adulthood. And if you think about, the difference when I went to school, you had a purse or a wallet, it had cash in it. When the cash was gone, it was gone.
Yeah.
Nowadays, as you said earlier, we've all got cards, we can shop online, we can use buy now, pay later at checkout, credit is easy to come by. It's a complex world out there, and if we're not teaching kids from a really early age to understand the fundamentals of the difference between needs and wants, how to budget, how to save up for things rather than spend everything all in one go, that delayed gratification. These are important concepts that we need to transmit to kids.
It's creating that divide a lot more between those that perhaps are privileged enough to have access and those that are sort of not, I guess, or not kind of getting that in the schools. So it is something that needs to be government-led so that it's forced on all schools so they're all in the same boat as they are with other subjects and material. Being a woman yourself, being a female founder and kind of the CEO, you've obviously been very successful in the financial services industry and you've done really well for yourself. How do you think firms and people can push more females into the industry and kind of expose them to this world of trying to kind of step in place and take those leadership roles?
I do still think there is a traditional bias in children, in families as children grow up, in terms of, is finance an area that women go into? I mean, obviously, I think that's fundamentally wrong.
Yeah.
But there is still a traditional bias there where maybe that's seen as more for boys than it is for girls. So I would love to see that myth dispelled and dispelled early on. You know, a lot of financial services these days is about STEM. It's the STEM subjects, it's the tech subjects. And we know, you know, despite 10 years of trying to encourage girls into more scientific, more technology-based subjects, that still hasn't reached parity. We haven't got to a place where as many women are putting themselves forward to go to university, to train through whatever means into those subjects. And I would love to see that accelerated through schools, through communication, through hopefully people like me standing up and saying, I'm not quite sure how I ended up running a tech company. Wasn't what I set out to do, but I set out to solve a problem that has involved creating and then running a tech company.
I guess when you started out, what were some of the kind of challenges and barriers that you faced that you would like to hope that, you know, people don't have to face going forward?
Something that's often talked about is the percentage of funding, of VC funding that goes to female founders. We can't really have this conversation without perhaps touching on that. It used to be about 3%, pretty appalling. But last year it went down to 2%.
Oh my.
Even more appalling. It is unfortunately due to how women are questioned during funding conversations with potential investors. It's down to whether women know how to make the right connections to get in front of the angel groups and then the VC groups. It's to do with asking for enough money. I mean, there's some really interesting research showing that women tend to play a little bit safer with how much money they ask for. I am cheered on by the current government, who have set up a select committee under the Women and Equalities group looking into that.
Amazing.
And I was actually very privileged recently to be asked to go and give evidence to them along with some other female entrepreneurs. And I think they're looking at some really interesting things that would allow us to improve that position.
From GoHenry's point of view, is there anything that you're either doing or you will be doing to kind of help get more females into the space or even just advocate even further?
We've now been running in the UK for 13 years. We've been in the US since 2018. We've been in Europe since 2022. We've got a great history of data that we can look at to see how young people's behaviours with money are evolving. And we do a lot of research. We particularly work with the University of St Andrews. They have a financial behavioural unit there and they do some research for us. So two things. One, we know that kids who are using GoHenry are learning far more quickly to use money in an empowered way, to make decisions with their money, and also to save, because that's one of the habits we're very much trying to set with children from a very early age, understanding the importance to save a little bit of money, to invest a little bit of money, getting those habits set super young so that they grow up into adults who have always got a savings pot behind them, have always got an investment pot behind them. If an adult has had financial education as a child, they are 46% more likely to start a business than if they hadn't. 76,000 new businesses a year in the UK alone. That would mean 123,000 new jobs per year in the UK alone, which would bring down the unemployment rate by 8%, and keep extrapolating, that's £7 billion added to the UK economy every year. Somebody who's had financial education as a child is far more likely to have a savings pot behind them that lets them weather all those bumps in the road that we all hit at some point when your boiler blows up, or you have a bump in your car and your car breaks down, you need to fix it. You are far more likely to end up with a pension pot outside of the state pension. The research showed you'd have £70,000 more in your pension pot, all from some basic financial education as a child. It's phenomenal the difference that that makes. We quite often produce what we call the Youth Economy Report, which is looking at how our customers are using money. Obviously all anonymised data, but just looking at the behavioural shifts in that. We were basically looking at how kids were earning money, kids and teenagers were earning money in the UK outside of pocket money paid by mum and dad. And 42% of kids from the age of 10 and above had side hustles. Everything from social media influencers, people trading their own and school friends' clothes on second-hand platforms, vintage platforms like Depop and Etsy and eBay. People making things and trading on Etsy. All kinds of entrepreneurial things. Gaming, being paid to game, being paid to produce video and podcasts for brands, all sorts of things going on. 42%.
So I think that's all we have time for today, but thank you so much for joining me, Louise. It's been really great speaking with you. And thank you to all those watching. For more information on our Women's Wealth series and all the latest headlines, visit ftadvisor.com. See you soon.